All right, welcome to today's webinar series event sponsored by eCapital Advisors. My name is Steve Adam, and I'll be introducing you to today's session. Today we'll be hosting an event in the eCapital webinar series titled "'Tis the Season for Updates on Oracle's PBCS." This session is a part of an ongoing monthly series that will highlight the newest features of PBCS. Today we'll be taking a deeper dive into the December update. We have taken the time to review this update so that you don't have to. Be sure to come back next month to see what's in store for January. For those of you who may not know, eCapital Advisors is an award-winning consultancy in the areas of data management, advisory services, business intelligence, cloud applications, and solutions for the Office of Finance. eCapital's Oracle practice focuses on Oracle Business Intelligence and Hyperion Enterprise Performance Management. In addition to strategic consulting and system implementation services, here at eCapital Advisors, we offer prepackaged starter programs such as Hyperion Upgrade Acceleration Program and our Cloud Enablement Kit. Contact us today to create your cloud with eCapital Advisors, or check out our resources area on our website at eCapitalAdvisors.com for all kinds of content such as case studies, videos, archived webinars, free ebooks, and more. For today's webinar, we're pleased to be joined by Bob Ussett, who is a Senior Management Consultant at eCapital Advisors, and Ryan Kohler, who is a Manager at eCapital Advisors specializing in the Oracle technology. Bob is an Oracle implementation expert with degrees in both Information Systems and Finance from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Bob has been working on Oracle Hyperion implementation since 2010. During this time, Bob has delivered several Hyperion implementations from a variety of industries, including healthcare, financial services, retail, and consumer products. Ryan has successfully implemented a variety of complex allocation models, driver-based strategic forecasting and budgeting systems, and operational reporting solutions. Ryan's area of expertise includes supply chain, healthcare, manufacturing, and for the last 7 years, he's been providing S-based planning, FDMEE, and other Oracle technology solutions to some of North America's most innovative companies. If you want to find out more about eCapital Advisors or how we can assist your organization with Oracle Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service, please contact us through the website at eCapitalAdvisors.com. I'm excited to bring in Ryan and Bob from eCapital headquarters in Minneapolis. Bob and Ryan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Steve. Much appreciated. So before we get started on today's content, just want to reiterate the fact that we are going to be continuing our webinar series that will be released on a monthly basis. And again, we're really just looking at the new features and updates for PBCS and EPBCS, walking you through any of the new features that are introduced and some of the enhancements to the existing functionality. The big benefit for all of you out there is that we're doing this for you so that you're all ready to go when the new updates are pushed into your environment. So just a friendly reminder on that, and we look forward to the continued participation there. So let's get started with the December update now. So as always, we're going to do just a quick kind of what is PBCS overview for those who may be new to the product. So PBCS is Oracle's cloud planning, budgeting, cloud solutions. So really, it's taking the old school Hyperion planning environment and putting that up in the cloud. So a couple things that really enhances for the end user experience is you're getting a nice simplified interface, as well as robust reporting and data form input processes, along with dashboarding and other things of that nature to really help you kind of have state-of-the-art forecasting and budgeting tools. Now, with PBCS, just a friendly reminder that EPBCS is now available, the E standing for enterprise here. And what the EPBCS will provide that the standard does not is really pre-built modules for you. So really trying to align the entire organization as a whole within one cloud solution. Bob and I had some interesting discussions with some Oracle product team members last week, and we actually found out that if you as a customer are interested in just one of the modules, you can actually coordinate with Oracle to get a discounted licensing rate to just buy or purchase one of those modules instead of everything that's included. So the modules that they do distribute with EPBCS are going to be Workforce, CapEx, Financial Modeling, and Project. So let's say you're an organization that already has PBCS and you're curious to adopt a workforce model, but you're not really ready to adopt a CapEx and some of the other ones. There is that option to kind of look at a pre-built solution there. So just wanted to kind of pitch that for everybody out there. Why don't we go ahead and get continued here now with kind of the biggest pieces of today's webinar. So really looking at the new features, right? So what we're going to look at here first is our nice little release readiness guide that's sent out on a monthly basis. So those of you who already have PBCS, this should look somewhat familiar to you. You're going to have your standard table of contents here, and you can kind of see some of the announcements and new features that are included in the December release here. We're specifically excited about one of these here, and that is the predictive planning for web integration. So we're going to actually start things off by looking at that here first. I'm going to spend some time to walk everyone through this new feature within PBCS. and then Bob's going to help us wrap up with announcements and new features on the other components. So let's talk about predictive planning here. So those of you who are familiar with on-premise Hyperion planning and some of the newer versions, and even PBCS today, there is a predictive planning that was already available to you. However, it required a separate install that was basically a plugin for SmartView. The interface was a little bit clunky, not quite ideal, but still some very interesting content. What predictive planning for web integration here is going to do for PBCS is really bring that directly to the simplified interface, really giving you statistical analysis and helping to kind of track how your historical data looks and compare that to what your existing forecast may be, and kind of help provide you with some driver-based forecasting tips, if you will, to see how that kind of tracks based on some statistical trending. So one cool thing with predictive planning is it will pick up seasonality as well and actually apply that to your predictions. And it will also give you kind of a best case and worst case threshold that you can also select from. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail here in the slides to come, but this is just a quick overview on what predictive planning really is here. So if you're in the simplified interface and you're connected to an input form that is set up for predictive planning, and really what I mean by that is that it's not read-only and that you have some base level time periods in here and things like that. You can actually select the actions menu. So this is where traditionally you would navigate to enter in like cell comments or supporting details. You will now see a new feature here called predictive planning. So again, when you're in your data form, simply drop that down, go to predictive planning. Once you click that, you'll see on the bottom of your data form a separate interface will open. That really is predictive planning here. You'll see right off the bat with these arrows here, what I'm trying to highlight here is it will pick up the context of your form before deciding what the context of the predictive planning will be. So in this case, the total revenue summarized accounting structure for 4001 here in this screenshot has children underneath that. And so because I have that actually expanded to show the children member or children members, you're going to see that actually pop up in predictive planning automatically for you. Now, a couple things here that you'll see too is with the predictive planning interface, you're going to see a key to the right of the graph there. And you're also going to see kind of a bolded line that separates out your historical data sets versus your outlook or your forecast. So in this case, I think the two most critical pieces to look at here are going to be that the forecast that you already have in the system is going to be that dark red line, and your prediction that predictive planning is kind of recommending to you based on historical trending is going to be the blue line in that graph. And we'll get into some of the additional details that are provided in the interface, but some really cool functionality here that I think can really help organizations drive towards more driver-based planning, right, and kind of streamline some of your seeding practices as well. So I'm going to go to the next slide here just to show you that if I'm in the data form and then I go in the data form itself, I can just click on a different cell and it will actually dynamically change my predictive planning point of view to whatever, in this case, account I'm selecting. I also have that drop down, which is the second arrow down there, where I can actually change my point of view that way as well. So a couple different options for you. You'll see now with this account, switching from the hardware revenue stream to the support revenue stream, that our forecast and prediction is quite a bit different, right? So this is a good example of maybe some opportunities for some improvements to the forecast based on historical trends. Now let me walk through the interface a little bit closer. So these screenshots are going to be a little larger, probably a little easier to see. Again, just to reiterate, you'll see that there's that key to the right of the graph, which is very helpful to help understand what the different elements of the graph really are. So on the right side here, you will actually see that there are prediction and forecasting pieces that you'll actually see. So in this case, we're saying that our forecast is projecting that we have over a 35% growth in our forecast. Well, based on our historical trending, our prediction is actually saying we should probably be closer to flat, or even in this case, maybe a little bit of a negative growth rate. If we scroll down with the interface, you're going to see a worst case and best case scenario provided as well. And you'll notice that in the predictive planning graphical interface, that's represented by the dotted orange lines there, just like the key indicates. And then you'll also be able to see information on the historical data itself, which is labeled as actual. So you can actually expand into these different components of the interface as well and drill into the details behind each of these data sets. That can be accomplished by simply clicking the info button in the top right corner there of each of these components. So in this case, if we look at the prediction model, it's actually even providing an error measure, so giving us kind of our error to accuracy there. And in this case, both situations are pretty accurate based on historical information. It also tells you what the start date and end date of your prediction will be. So in this case, we're just assuming for a 1-year type forecast outlook. But if you were an organization that wanted to do a 3-year outlook or a 5-year outlook, you can modify how you have your predictive planning set up to actually accommodate for requirements like that too. So a lot of flexibility here to really fit the needs of any type of organizational forecasting and budgeting, but some pretty cool functionality overall. So before I was showing you the predictive details, just like the predictive details, you can access the information behind the historicals as well. I think this is helpful just to understand, for one, if there are any large outliers that will be excluded when actually trying to provide some of these predictions and recommendations. So in this case, for both of those revenue streams, we actually have one outlier, it looks like. It looks like for the hardware here, we have seasonality, and for our other component, we actually do not have seasonality. And you can also see the start date and end date for your historical data set that will be used to kind of benchmark for your trending. So what is important here is you can actually modify your start date and end date for your historical analysis as well. And we'll get into that in a future slide here. So moving on, just wanted to show you some additional ways to be able to tell if your predictive planning analysis is applying seasonality or not. So as I mentioned before, for that first revenue stream, which was hardware, you'll notice that in the graph, there are kind of blue highlighted periods. That is indicating that it is picking up seasonality and actually applying that to your statistical analysis. So in this case, it's saying that we're picking up a seasonality trend of 12 months. And so that will apply that 12-month seasonality trend to your prediction in your forecast. In the second revenue stream here, for our example, the support revenue stream, in this case, it's just really not picking up any seasonality, and you can really tell that by the graph, right? So it looks like at the start of the first few years, it's kind of up and down, pretty sporadic there, but then it really kind of flatlines and is more consistent moving forward. Really no seasonality, right? So you can kind of see that it's very easy to pick that up and a great tool set to be able to identify that in a very fast manner. So I had mentioned before that you can actually change the overall settings of, let's say, defining what your historical data set may be and also your future trending. You can do that the best way through your overall settings, and that can be accessed by just clicking this icon right here. When you access the overall settings menu, you're going to see basically two different options pop up. You have date ranges settings as well as chart view settings. So in this case, let's say in 2010, if your organization had something very specific as far as kind of an outlier year that you knew would not be a situation that you wanted to account for in the future, you could exclude that and maybe start in 2011, for example. Helping to provide better predictive analysis moving forward. Same thing with the predictive range. In this case, we're just doing 12 periods in our test environment. If you wanted to do 24 or 36 or however many that you see fit, you can modify that here very quickly. Looking at the chart view settings, really just kind of seeing how you want to view that graph. I think one that I played around with a little bit that depending on how your data output looks is that linear trend line. You can apply that to the graph as well, just to kind of show you what a linear outlook would look like. Really just providing you with one additional kind of data set to evaluate, which can be kind of helpful there. So again, the overall settings is a very helpful way to kind of modify the predictive planning analysis and output just kind of from one spot here. Another thing that I really liked about the predictive planning interface within PBCS here is, again, within the simplified interface and predictive planning, anything that you hover over with your mouse will actually give you a description for you. So, seems pretty intuitive overall, and it is, but I think some of the explanations they provide here can actually be pretty helpful at times. So, if you look at the series prediction interval, for example, it's actually telling you the high and the low as you kind of hover over certain areas in the graph. It dynamically picks that up. Can actually give you explanations of the growth rate, whether or not the graph is including seasonality, and some more definition around what that kind of risk component looks like too. So again, I think very helpful for new users trying to adopt it. Anytime that you can have more information, displayed dynamically, it is definitely a win overall. So now you're probably wondering, that's great. We can, we're able to see, how a prediction should look based on historical trending, based on statistical analysis, and compare that to our forecast. But what happens if I want to actually overwrite my existing forecast that I have out there with what predictive planning is providing to us? And that's really the power of this tool. So if I decide that I want to overwrite my forecast that I've included in here and built up with a prediction, I can do that using the paste prediction option. And that can be accessed here by clicking the icon that's indicated by the arrow there. So in this case, we're really looking at the support revenue stream, which was well different, or very different than our forecast. So I think we want to decide to paste there. So if we go then to the next slide here, you'll kind of see what this menu looks like. And so it'll give you the ability to select a couple options here. The first one is the copy from. So if you're thinking about this like a standard data copy, we're really just talking about a source and a target here. So your target's always going to be forecast working, because that's what you want to change, but you have the options to select from multiple data components. So if I wanted the prediction, which is going to be more, I would say more of a conservative estimate or more of a conservative forecast, I could decide to overwrite my existing forecast with that. If I wanted to go with the worst case or best case, I could also select that too. If I wanted to be very conservative or a little bit more risky with my predictions as well. A nice piece here too is I can decide whether or not I want to apply the paste prediction functionality for just the currently selected member or all members on the form. So if you think kind of outside the box here, you can think of some pretty cool things you can do with this tool, from not only in the analyst's power of kind of owning their own processes, but from an administrator's perspective, if you wanted to set up a process within predictive planning to start handling some of your data seeding activities for like the start of a new year for your budget, for example, things like that, you could actually create a form that would essentially use predictive planning to do all of your seeding. So that could eliminate some business rules, some data copy maintenance that would have to be happening, and you could really try to kind of help empower the end user community to really own that data set. So I think overall some pretty cool functionality here. So in summary, I mean, we're pretty huge on predictive planning. I think based on our testing, it seems to be much more streamlined and much more dynamic and easy to use as opposed to the traditional smart view option for this. So I'm definitely giving predictive planning a thumbs up here. And again, I think can really provide some value to the clients out there that have PBCS, so that you can really start moving towards more of a driver-based forecasting and budgeting model, and really trying to hit your targets overall. So now that we've covered predictive planning, which is really the biggest feature release here for the December updates for PBCS, I'm now going to pass it on over to Bob here now, and he's going to walk you through the additional updates that were included in the December release.
Yeah, this is Steve. We had a question come in, and it was, is predictive planning part of the regular PBCS?
Great question. Yeah, so as of this Friday, it will be. So right now it is just in the test environment. So as soon as we release this, or I should say as soon as Oracle releases this this Friday into the production environment, anyone that already has PBCS, you can access this and start playing around with it.
So this really is, we've talked about a lot of features on these webinars and different things, and this really is a feature, this predictive planning that you're getting out of the box with PBCS that really is going to enable your users to have machine planning. Really is an exciting feature that they're adding in this release. Ryan and I both highly recommend at least playing around with it, get an idea of what it has to offer, because it really is a powerful tool it can be a powerful tool for your organization and your forecasting process. So, so moving on to other features in this release. So one new feature that's coming out on Friday, as Ryan said, is you can now update your substitution variables using the REST API commands. So a lot of us may not know what this REST API means, but basically a REST API command is something you can do through a web browser, where you're able to use different commands or methods that they're called, such as retrieve values, update values, things like that. In the image we have here on this slide, we actually there are plugins you can install on your browsers that will actually make the APIs a little easier to understand. It kind of parses it out of computer language and brings it more human legible, but you can see here that it still is not extremely user-friendly to work with. You need to be pretty technical to understand these commands, but what it does show us maybe coming is what EPM Automate, which again is the utility that Oracle provides to do different things such as automate your metadata loads, automate file loads, run calculations, different things like that. EPM Automate is actually just a tool that will make these API calls for us. So essentially when we see this, what we're saying is they're making additions to their API calls that they have available, this one being a substitution variable. And what it's saying is in a future release, we should be able to update those substitution variables using EPM Automate. So, actually going in the REST API and making those changes is likely not something that we would do on a regular basis, but it does point us in the direction Oracle is going, where it is going to make enhancements to what EPM Automate is going to be, allow us to be capable of from an automation standpoint. The next thing that we'll talk about here is in the activity report, which is new as of September, I believe, where you were able to view them, and in November they made it so you had a nice graphical interface, kind of showed you how many users were in the system, gave you a top 10 business rules and the run times or the most commonly executed business rules. They've expanded some of the logging around this to now also allow you to download some detailed information as far as what your users have been doing in the system. So again, it's right in that overview in that activity report, and you just click that download, and you can download a CSV file that will have the different date and times, users, and the general concept of what they were doing during that time, actually down to a pretty detailed level. So you're able to go in there and you're able to say, okay, so for example, in our first column here, for an example, we can see that John Doe logged in on the 14th, and they went in and they were editing dimensions. You're able to see what people are doing, and that would go for administrative tasks, so different screens you'd click on to administer your application, but it also is down to user-specific tasks, so things such as, a user, again, executed this business rule, or a user logged into SmartView, and we can see when they've done that, or they've went into a form. Basically, it gives us more tools as administrators to kind of track what users have done through your system and just get an understanding of, trying to help a user maybe work through an issue that they had and they didn't remember exactly what they did. It could help you go through that. It can also just give you a better feel, again, to what users are actually using within your system to know where to focus on support or possible enhancements in the future. Another new thing in this release is we can now enable sandboxes by your cube or plan type. So we had covered what sandboxes were a couple months ago when we kind of did our overview of the planning and budgeting cloud service. Basically, what sandboxing is it's an easy way to have as many dynamic what-if scenarios as you would like. So users are very easily able to, right within the form, just click a simple button, and they can essentially have their own what-if scenario that they can do whatever type of planning they want to do in that. And you can have as many of those as you want. So you could have one, you could have 100, as many as your users are out there creating. And then what you're able to do with those what-if scenarios is you can publish them back to the working version, or the base version, if you will, to kind of push those numbers back. So again, from a what-if scenario standpoint, you can have as many options as you have. You can use your reports to hit those scenarios, almost be ready for those challenge cycles that may be coming, where they say, well, we're going to want to see expenses decrease by 3%, or maybe they're going to say 5%. You could possibly have both scenarios ready to go for those challenges, and then leaving the meeting, very easy, just come back, publish the answer that you want into your working version, and you've essentially finalized your forecast or plan for that cycle. So again, that's not new functionality, but the new functionality within our model now is it is enabled by Cube. So essentially you can simplify the process for users. So if you have a Cube or a plan type where you won't need that what if functionality, you can remove that layer of complexity for users so they don't accidentally start creating them and publishing them when it's not something they should be leveraging. So the last couple features here are related to financial reporting. So the first one here is adding related content to financial reports. And so that would be things such as maybe an external website or something like that you can actually embed in your report that users would be allowed to hit if they were in the HTML view, for example. And you do that right through the FR interface, where you're able to click in the cell and you check the box to add the related content and go to set it up. We have it in red here. Just want to call out, it doesn't appear to be working for this release. So, not something we should look forward to in December, but again, assuming that a fix does come, we're able to see where Oracle is trying to directionally go with some of their reporting capabilities, and hopefully it is something that we would have soon in the future. But unfortunately, we got to call it out here. It doesn't appear to be something that is working currently. You'll get errors when you try to set it up. So another feature through the financial reporting is you can now hide the grid lines for HTML reports that are pulled. So you can see in the bottom right, we actually have an example of a report where we hid those grid lines. And, is this a huge feature? I wouldn't go out here and say that anyone's going to buy the software for this or anything like that. But, I have always found it, somewhat frustrating that the HTML reports and the PDFs that would be created, have a look and feel that is just very different. And this is one feature here now that where we have this, where they start to align with the look and feel a little more closely. So I know I personally used to always recommend that people either pull them in HTML or pull them in PDF because they could look so different. And users they want to have a consistent view of the reports that we set up. That's the whole reason to use these financial reports. So we're starting to get closer with some of these features as well. So again, not a major release from a reporting standpoint, but I think it is again directionally critical to standardize the reporting regardless of the view that you see it within the software. The last feature here that we'll cover in this release is more of an administrative thing. So now when you're in your FR Web Studio and you're in the development tool, you can actually limit what you see in your repository to edit. So really straightforward. There's just a little drop down there. You can either make it so it only shows you reports, only shows you templates that you may have set up, or all the different things you have on there. And it basically just filters your list, makes it easier for you to navigate as an administrator. So those were the features for the December release. A couple of call-outs that we feel is important to note, very important to note, especially in this first one, is just some support to consideration long-term. So within PBCS, we know that there is the standard interface, that is the screen down in the bottom right. It is that tile-based structure that users will click around in. It is the interface that is going to have most, if not all, in a lot of cases exclusively, a lot of this content that we cover on a monthly basis. A lot of it can only be accessed through the simplified interface. It is the strategic direction of the cloud software for Oracle, and they have made that very clear with the documentation in this release that as at the end of next year, so at the start of 2018, the standard interface will no longer be a supported piece of the software. So again, we always recommend that most users use the simplified interface because it has features, and it's going to have features that the standard interface does not. But I think it is important to realize that if for whatever reason you are using that simplified interface, it is time to start planning how to migrate to the simplified. There may be some user training that's needed for users. Again, with the tile-based approach, it is different. But a year is a while to initiate. It definitely wouldn't take a year to move from the standard to the simplified, but beginning to create a plan on when you're going to do it and rolling out to users is something you should definitely start looking into, just because the standard is not going to be supported. Another change in support I know we covered last month, but Oracle did call it out again here, is the reporting studio, the tool used to modify your FR reports. The desktop client will no longer be supported as of May of next year. Again, we covered this already last month, but essentially if you're still using the desktop version to modify your reports, I strongly recommend getting in there and using the web client and getting familiar with it, because the desktop version is not going to be supported in just a few short months. So that covers our features and some of the support callouts that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. We recommend you go out to our eCapital website and look at some of the cloud enablement kits we have out there. We have different pricing and project strategies around implementing an application within your organization. There's differences depending on how many plan types or cubes you're going to need, the dimensionality you made in your applications. There's lots of different things, and we try to outline how those differences may impact your implementation in this cloud kit. So I recommend just going out there and taking a peek at that. And then, as we've talked about, this is a monthly webinar series. So again, please join us in January. We take this time to review these releases, so you have an easy way to know what's going to be changing in your environment, and you don't have to take the time to dig through it. So So join us next month in January, and we will cover all these new features and support things that will come up next month. So with that, we thank you for your time, and we will answer questions that came through during the presentation.
All right, thank you, Bob and Ryan. At this point in our session, we'll open it up to any questions from the attendees. So we wait for questions to roll in. Just to let you know a little bit more about eCapital. We service, eCapital's advisor services use a proven results-based methodology to ensure success. We apply years of accounting, technology, and project management experience to your business and processes, creating customized business analytics solutions that match your needs. We don't just provide you with the solutions, we educate you and let you know how to use them in a most effective way. eCapital Advisors wants you to feel smarter, more prepared, and empower you to succeed. Whatever the need, we do have services and consultants ready to help you integrate them into your business. eCapital Advisors is an Oracle Gold partner working with some of the most innovative companies in North America, and I encourage you to check out our blog at eCapitalAdvisors.com to subscribe to our news and events, and please do join our monthly webinars. The first question we have is, how much history is kept from user logs that can be downloaded?
Yeah, so within that interface within the application, the history I believe that there is 14 days of history that is kept out there. That actually would be, we could confirm that very easily just by going into either your production or test environment and just going to that page, because it's all going to be there. I mean, this feature has been enabled in our prod environment, like I've said, for a couple months now. So you will have built up some history. It won't be until Friday, however, that we see some of the detailed CSV extract that's available to us. But I know that it's going to be at least 14. I believe it may be longer than that as well, something we could easily verify.
All right, another question. We've been having issues with SmartView Predictive Planning version crashing frequently and having overall performance issues. How has the performance been in the PBCS web version?
Yeah, sure. So good question, and I can relate to that as well. I feel like the SmartView version did have some performance issues and would crash for me as well. Through my testing, I have not found any issues from a performance standpoint on PBCS with predictive planning. So in the test environment, all systems a go. So performance has been very good so far. So
thanks, Ryan. Another question. Once the standard interface goes away, will you still be able to access it for admin tasks?
That is a good question. I don't think that we even know the answer to that question yet. This is the first month that they've kind of given the hint that they're going to retire the standard interface. As we get close to that date, they may say if they would just enable us to even click into that view to be able to do anything. So whether it be user or administrative processes, I think that is a question that we will learn together as we get closer to that date. I think more importantly, I think we need to at least start having the mentality and the mindset to move into the simplified interface. So even if we have the standard interface as a means to do certain things, we should work whenever possible to get in that simplified interface again. It's the long-term strategy. If we want to initialize a lot of these features that we're talking about, we're going to need to be in that world anyway. So, but we will find out to that question as we get closer.
Yeah, I think, Bob, just to add on to exactly what you kind of spoke about there, the big piece here is that it appears that any new functionality, they're really only rolling out in the simplified interface. So for example, predictive planning, that's a simplified interface only feature. So if you want to start leveraging some of the new functionality that gets released, it's going to be in your benefit to kind of transition over to the simplified interface if you have not already.
Another question we have is, since the related content feature update isn't working as expected, do you still anticipate Oracle pushing out the December updates to production this Friday?
That is another good question. We not even us as a partner network have the inner workings Oracle that way, but since we have not got a communication stating otherwise, we're making the assumption that it will go into production. We've been tracking these releases for several months, years now, as they make these updates, and there's only been a handful of times that they've ever actually canceled a release and pushed the features to the next month. So, especially when we talk about the feature that they're rolling out here and it being minor in nature and being a new feature, highly unlikely they would delay the release just based on that single feature having a bug related to it.
All right, well, that concludes our Q&A portion of the event. If you want to learn more about the capabilities of the Oracle Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service or our Cloud Enablement Kits, please do reach out to us through our website at eCapitalAdvisors.com. We'll have a member of our customer care team assist you with any questions you may have. We also do invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you to Bob and Ryan for presenting. Don't forget to keep an eye out for January's update webinar. Thanks, and have a good one.